conversate about what's going on in the news, in the media. Let's do some general conversations this morning. I'm just going to talk about this. It's interesting how Vlad has a lot of comments for Attorney Busby, and many people probably do. But it's interesting how, I don't know. We're going to get into it. Um, Attorney Busby stood his ground in regards to his thoughts, feelings, and he didn't back down. And he's making it seem like Vlad doesn't know what he's talking about. Because I think in certain situations, come on in. Thanks for tuning in to Let's Talk About It Media 21. I think a lot of people have concerns because they did not understand the charges. Some of the people just did not understand the charges. And then you can't fitted in a peg that did not go with the charges. So we're going to get into that. Okay, so let me go ahead and do my disclaimer. And is Vlad going on Pierce Morgan for clicks and views? I don't know. I don't watch Vlad. Is his viewership down? I'm surprised that he's on Pierce Morgan, giving smoke to whoever he can, conversate with and get upset with. It's just interesting because Attorney Busby was trying to make it very clear. Those were not the charges in regards to the trial. So let me get to my disclaimer and then we're going to get into it. Copyright disclaimer. Under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comments, news reporting, teaching, scholarships and research. Fair use is use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. All comments are alleged, in our opinion, and for entertainment purposes only. So the biggest thing is people are like, Vlad, he's trying to explain to you some of those witnesses may not have fit in regards to the charges because of where they might have lived, they might have stayed. It's almost like the feds was looking for a certain client to go along with Cassie and Jane Doe. And maybe Attorney Busby's clients didn't fit that profile to assist or help the case. Remember how we had said that there was a lot of people on the list in regards to possibly having to take the stand, but a lot of people did not. Many people were like, why? Why didn't such and such take the stand? And we even said it. Why didn't this person take the stand? But we're finding that if it didn't suit what their needs were in regards to the trial, they weren't going to call you. Period. They weren't going to call people that could possibly assist or help if there was a certain need and direction they were trying to go in. So we're going to get to this clip and we're going to talk about why Vlad is mad. Vlad might be mad because he's not happy that alleged Attorney Busby is suing Diddy, and he just doesn't see. You got to realize there's a lot of attorneys that's being called out. There's a lot of attorneys that's being called out if they filed lawsuits against Diddy. And we get it. We get it. But many people have to realize if a client has a valid lawsuit, then you're going to speak with them. So we're going to get to what Attorney Busby had to say, and then we're going to kind of go from there. But yeah, they went back and forth, and people were like, okay, Vlad, you're flexing, but do you really understand the charges? And that's what we're talking about. Okay. Let's see. Hold on one second. Give me a second. Like the videos, you guys come in. I appreciate you all for being here. We kind of first want to hear from... Why is that doing that? Okay, we're just going to go there because maybe that's what is guiding me.
Quite telling that she said she was brutalized as well in a similar fashion that Cassie was, and then within 48 hours the tape vanished. And I think a lot of the fault has to be laid at the nature of the system. We used to say that all you need is consent, whether it's you sign consent or yes, we're good to go.
This is the young lady that's speaking right now.
That, okay, yes, they are drawn in by the glamour of being with someone like P. Diddy or a high-profile person. You can choose the names. They are drawn into the system, but nothing means that they deserve to be beaten up and treated like ragdolls in the way that Cassie and arguably this lady said. And so we need to be looking at the cultural issue as well. That's the fundamental issue. It's not just about you sign a piece of paper and you can make an NDA, keep you quiet or whatever. The culture is telling women that actually you can be treated this way because you happen to be in this space, and all that keeps everything above board is the legality. And unfortunately, the culture is our problem. It's not the problem of the federal prosecutors. It's the problem of us as a society. The PAs, the people that are handling the press releases, the lawyers, everyone, they are part of the culture, that culture of subservience, and allowing these people to do things that are legally above board but are horrible and just quite vile. I feel sorry for Cassie because I do think the prosecutors misled her. The case was very, very shoddy on many levels. You can't have a conspiracy with just one person. That's not a conspiracy, that's a thought. And so I think in many ways that case was always going to fall through. But I do think that these girls have been let down by a culture that has boiled down appropriate behavior to just legality and consent.
Okay, DJ Vlad, you posted on X after the verdicts came in. Cassie is guilty of the same prostitution charges Diddy was just convicted of. I interviewed 3 of the male escorts. All 3 of them said the same thing. Cassie picked them, contacted them for free calls, enjoyed the experiences and paid them. Meanwhile, she's sitting on $30 million and writing letters to the judge asking him not to give Diddy bail. So pretty clear what your view is of Cassie Ventura there. What do you think should happen to her?
I mean, personally, I think she should be charged with the same thing that Diddy was charged with. Ultimately, he was convicted of prostitution. She was involved in the prostitution. Every male escort that I talked to said that she was the one picking the actual male prostitutes. She would book them. She enjoyed every experience. She was sort of guiding the whole thing while they were together, and she was the one that actually paid them. Ultimately,
but did she pay with her money or his?
RICO and sex trafficking and so forth. What Diddy did to Cassie in that hallway was absolutely horrible, but that is not what the trial was about. It was about RICO. It was about sex trafficking. Neither of which made sense in this particular trial. And if you want to actually convict her for prostitution, Cassie is just as liable for that same prostitution that Diddy got convicted of, but she was given immunity in the whole situation. So I just feel it's really just a messed up situation.
That's a completely ridiculous stance, because you know what the consequences of her, not booking those prostitutes? We saw it in that hallway in the hotel, in an international chain hotel that were happy to take $50,000 to wipe it off the face of the earth. Those are the consequences. If she hadn't done that, it is very likely that she would have been manhandled in that way, even in the street, and someone would have been able to wipe the footage of that. I appreciate the fact that she hold on. I appreciate the fact that she was
not charged with domestic violence. Talking about a totally different situation.
I guess the question that Esther's posing there really is, did she go along so apparently consensually with all the freak off stuff with all these escorts because she
to that?
Well, hang on. My question is, did she go along with it in the apparently consensual way because she was in fear of retribution from Diddy in a way we saw with the beating?
No, I don't think so. At the end of the day, this was an artist that had one hit song 20-something years ago. She had the ability to leave at any point. She was signed to a label, but labels leave artists that don't react constantly. She could have went. She stayed because she wanted to be in that particular situation. Now, people are going to argue with me and so forth, but at the end of the day, she stayed because there's no one else that was offering her a record deal. There's no one else that was spending millions of dollars on her. There's no one else that was showering her with gifts. So she decided to stay. And ultimately, at the end of the day, when the money ran out, when she married a broke fitness trainer and had to go move back in with her parents, and the money completely ran out, then it's like, okay, let's sue Diddy and let's get $20 million out of him. That is my take on it. That's always been my take. That always will be my take.
Okay, Tony Buzz, we don't bring you in here. Just first off, what do we think is going to happen to Diddy here? What sentence are you anticipating?
I'm expecting 2 to 4 years, I would expect. And he's not going to get 20 years, obviously. He's already has time served. There's going to be some mitigating factors. He doesn't have a prior record. However, there are some issues within the case that might be reasons for the judge to go a little bit higher than perhaps normal, but I would expect 2 to 4 years.
Let's talk salary.
Great.
Fair use reaction clip. We're talking about this because many people are talking about, will the feds add charges to Diddy? And now that he's been guilty of, was that the plan the whole time? Add some charges so we can do additional charges. And many people have been talking about that as well. Can you guys hear me okay? Because I don't see too many comments. Like the video as you guys come in. Fair use reaction clip.
You represented many Diddy victims in civil actions. You had over 100 people come to you with various allegations. What impact does this verdict have on the suits that you want to proceed with?
Zero. I mean, I was listening to Vlad there for a minute, and I'm sure that same kind of argument took place in the jury room. I mean, people have a hard time putting their head around a situation where somebody might consent one day and not consent the next. And there are people in this world that believe, well, you consented once, so therefore you're consenting for life. That is not what the law says, and I can understand why there may have been people on that jury that have the same point of view. And I'm not criticizing, I'm just saying that there's a lot of psychological issues here that people really don't understand about trauma bonding and how somebody might feel compelled to do something that they really don't want to do. But even if they said no one time, that is not consent. And I think in this trial, and we didn't have the benefit, or at least I didn't have the benefit of watching it day to day and seeing each witness and hearing how they said the things they said. All I was able to see was the transcript that I would receive on a daily basis. Obviously, the jury thought that the RICO situation was complete baloney. They thought apparently that this was not a RICO situation. There was no conspiracy, and they were trying to put a round peg into a square hole, or vice versa. I did think that, given the testimony that I saw, that there were instances where Cassie and Jane were forced to do things either through financial pressure or through extortion type pressure or through force, things that they did not want to do.
But the interesting thing on that, Tony, is that the jury clearly did not believe either woman when it came to any issue about consensuality. They just didn't believe any of it. I think pretty much across the board, it was clear they had not bought in to the suggestion that any of this was non-consensual.
No question. I mean, I think you're right. And sometimes juries do things that we don't expect. I go back to whether, each instance that this happened, did he have consent each time? And I see Blythe's point. There were times when it looks like that Cassie was involved in setting some of these.
Well, there's no question of that. I interviewed the Punisher, the guy who gave evidence. He gave very powerful, eloquent evidence. I've interviewed him several times. He's a very good talker, and he had no real kind of skin in the game. In fact, he was brought from the prosecution to give evidence, but actually ended up being a pretty powerful witness for the defense, it turned out, because what he said was everything was done through Cassie Ventura and seemed very consensual. Went on for over 2 years, a dozen or so encounters in hotels where Diddy just sat in the corner saying nothing. She booked him, she paid him, she organized it, everything was driven by her. She seemed to have a good time, everyone was happy. I thought that was very powerful evidence, actually, for Diddy, because it seemed to contradict everything that they were trying to position it as, which was this was all coercion.
Let me offer this up. The government settled in on using two alleged victims. They used Cassie and they used Jane. Early on, when this all started, we were contacted by the U.S. Attorney, and they asked us, can we speak to some of your clients? So we went to, and they told us, these are the ones we want to speak to. We made those people available. They talked to a couple of those people. But I think by that point, they had decided, their team had decided that they had what they needed. They had the goods, if you will, to proceed with Jane and with Cassie. I think that was a mistake. I will say, as I watched the trial, at least learned about the trial daily as it went on, I thought the government was doing what they needed to do to get a conviction. Obviously, that wasn't the case. Obviously, they did not believe that they believed that Diddy had consent, and they didn't believe there was a conspiracy. And obviously, the transportation to commit prostitution. I think everybody, no matter which side you fall out on, believed that there would be a conviction there.
But there is a point, isn't there, which Vlad made, I thought, pretty compellingly, that if you're going to convict Diddy and you don't believe that it was non-consensual and Cassie did all the booking, why is she not being charged? And could it be that the reason that she turned on Diddy was to preempt potential?
And the biggest thing is, where did those funds come from? Did he transfer or wire money to her to pay for it? Let's continue. Fair use reaction clip.
Some legal exposure herself.
Who knows? We'll never know that. They gave her immunity early on, and that's the horse they rode with, and we see what happened.
Well, I don't think it's that cut and dry. I think consent without fear of consequences is not, with fear of consequences, is not actually consent. So if you were going against Cassie, for example, you're going to try her, all she has to do is show you that video and just say, look at what happens if I didn't do that. Now, I don't think it reached the threshold for the jury for RICO, which I completely understand. Like I said, a conspiracy that involves one is a thought. But
Good morning, everyone. Press 3 if you knew where you're watching from. Press 3 if you knew where you're watching from. Press 5 you've been here before, where you're watching from. We're just doing a recap review in regards to Piers Morgan talking to Attorney Busby, DJ Vlad, and they're just giving their opinion about the whole case. Many people were concerned about how the case was written, period. Many people were concerned about how it was written.
this is why I say this is not a problem for the courts. It's a problem for culture and society. Cassie met P. Diddy when she was 17 years old. She signed a 10-album deal with P. Diddy by the age of like 20 or 21, which is virtually unheard of in this industry. I mean, I'm sorry, she wasn't Beethoven. She didn't have the kind of talent that would warrant that kind of record deal. She was clearly groomed. Now, amongst all of that, could you say she could have got up and left? Okay, arguably, yes.
She was with him 10 years.
Yes, but the thing is, he had
She was with him 10 years, and the Punisher was very clear.
Yes,
She did not give any impression to him of being anything but a very enthusiastic and willing participant. It's quite kinky stuff.
Look at what happened when she tried to break up with him and date, what's his name, the rapper, who had his car blown up. I mean, it's not that cut and dry. This, I feel like...
We have lots of chats through the Me Too era and stuff, and obviously one of the things people are saying about this is that, in a way, it signals the beginning of the end of that Me Too movement, because for a long time, everyone was encouraged to believe women accusers. At the moment they made allegations, they had to be believed. That was always, to me, a very dangerous proposition. It should always be they should be taken seriously. the allegations should be investigated properly, and then decisions should be made about whether there have been a crime. Very dangerous to believe accusers before you actually know whether they're telling the truth. But here we've got a situation, I think, where if he'd been in this case 3-4 years ago, he would have gone down.
I don't think
the jury, I suspect, has moved with the times.
I think the whole Me Too issue was a separate kind of beast.
How to tackle 40.
So there's that, you guys. Whether you agree or disagree, many people are calling out how everything was written. I thank everyone for being here. I wanted to go back and forth in regards to Attorney Busby and Vlad are going off on each other. And it's because Vlad may not understand the full charges of what they could charge him with and how the charges went in regards to the women. So if the women weren't out of state, or they weren't transported, or they might not have been given substances, that's what Attorney Busby is trying to let Vlad know. And then he's talking about, well, how many cases have you won recently? He's won cases. And he's like, well, how many cases have you won against Diddy? The trial just ended. He couldn't move forward with the civil suits until the trial had ended. So I thank y'all for being here. I appreciate y'all for being here. Why is Vlad on Piers Morgan? Is he looking for clicks and views? Is he looking for arguments he may not get on his show? We don't know, but many people have called out Vlad. It is what it is. I get what Attorney Busby is saying. I get it. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for supporting the channel. This is a quick one because I have to be somewhere, but thanks for being here. Copyright disclaimer: under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comments, news reporting, teaching, scholarships and research. Fair use is used permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. All comments are alleged, in our opinion, and for entertainment purposes only. Focus on healthy, safe relationships. Be around people that's loving, kind, and respectful. Goodbye. Enjoy your day.